Welcome to the Filmistines, the double feature podcast. Join us as we unravel the interwoven experience of the continuous conversation of cinema. Take part in pairing movies with their cursed counterparts, movies that share DNA, or even pairing questionable duos by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/Filmistines. We offer tiers at the $1, $5, and $20 level, where the $5 tier will grant the ability to request films to further the discussion. So grab some popcorn, sit back, and get ready to join the 100-year conversation. This is the Filmistines, where movies are more than just entertainment, they're an experience.
They're an experience.
All around you. And welcome back to another episode of the Filmistines. Thank you guys for joining us today. Today I am joined by my gonzo friend, Lucy.
Hello, everyone.
You can join us every Monday and Friday for brand new episodes of the Filmistines on all of our free feeds, and every other Wednesday on patreon.com/Filmistines for Patreon exclusive episodes, like our recent Patreon exclusive episode where we ranked the Saw films. Come check that out. Lots of fighting words exchanged. Some other recent episodes include Maxine, Longlegs, Minari, Twisters, and the new Deadpool and Wolverine. Remember to leave nice comments, thoughts, and ideas on our Patreon as well. Come subscribe. Come request a movie. More importantly, go rate us on Apple Podcasts. We appreciate all the support. Thank you guys very much.
Are you stressed and filled with anxiety like I am? Maybe in a bit of pain from that car accident you had a few years ago? Well, the sponsor of today's episode, Hempville CBD, has us covered. They have the highest quality products created by chemists and doctors. Hempville carries everything from CBD to THC dispensary grade without those despicable dispensary prices. Order your Delta 8, 9 edibles and vapes along with the THCA flower and get free shipping when you spend $50 or more at hempvillecbd.com. Check out the link in the description for more details.
But today we will be discussing Terry Gilliam's 1998 film, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, with Johnny Depp and Benicio del Toro. I'm very curious what you have to say about this movie, because it's sort of this absurdist, almost Kobo Abe-esque take on the heart and soul of America at a certain point, or at least maybe in some minds, and specific maybe observations on outward observations of specific cultures, subcultures, like the police and their perspective on drug culture, which I think is one of the highlights of the movie. But there sort of is a lot happening in this movie and also nothing happening in this movie. There's not a lot of point, and it's maybe a fundamental problem, and I'm kind of two minds on it, because in essence the book is a retelling, an accounting of what happened. The movie is more in real time of what Hunter S. Thompson is going through. But there's this fundamental element to Hunter S. Thompson in general, and that is gonzo journalism. And for this particular investigation, one must be so removed in the most objective way possible to make any kind of like Sartre-esque commentary on it, on what he's experiencing in Las Vegas. So I like this idea that one must be so intoxicated to digest what he's experiencing real time to make some kind of existential sense of it. But at the same time, that's sort of the antithesis of the book version of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. So there's something about that I really like. There is this true kind of companion piece nature to the two works. As far as the film goes itself, these performances are fun, but they don't go anywhere. The film is kind of boring in a funny way because they don't have a lot of meaningful dialogue between the two. Anything that's interesting comes out of Hunter S. Thompson's, Mr. Duke's introspection or just observation of what he's experiencing. There's really no takeaway. There's really no sticking point. They are in the hotel or a hotel. They get fucked up, return back to a hotel, rinse and repeat. We see a lot of really incredible visuals. And so much nonsense happens, like them flooding the hotel, that it starts to blur any kind of sense of surrealism, which is kind of fun, and just absurd hallucinations, like the carpet engulfing someone early on. It's a weird movie. And I apologize for making you watch it because it's maybe not for everyone, but I hope you took something away from it. You have a little bit of experience with Terry Gilliam and watching some Monty Python. Monty Python is very much a thing from back in the day. It's cute and all. But what did you think of Fear and Loathing?
This was definitely a hard movie to watch. And not in the literal sense that I couldn't keep my eyes open, but just in the sense of trying to understand not what was going on, because that's very obvious, but why.
Why? Yeah.
Why is this movie a thing? Why was this movie made? It definitely requires some time for you to think about any of this shit, and definitely some homework on who Hunter S. Thompson is. Maybe a quick synopsis of what the book is about would help. So it definitely requires some time, especially knowing what's going on in America around this time. That's too much for a movie. I really like what you said about it being a companion piece to the book. I wish I had the time to read the book. I don't. So a synopsis will do, which is basically the movie.
They're very similar, but the narration is just different.
Yeah.
Because when you're reading the book, it's happening, yes, real time as you're reading. He's recounting the, shit he went through.
Yeah.
But it comes across like he is remembering it and writing about it. And here it's happening literally real time. And it feels more introspective and observational. And it's just a different flavor.
Right. And it's expected. The film doesn't fill you in on a lot of things, like the book, I'm sure, has the potential to do. Because the book also has the potential for you to go back and kind of reread things. Reread a sentence or two is not the same as backing up to see what someone said at a certain point. And it was very hard for me to pay attention to his narration, his actual self, because I was just focused on the craziness that I was watching on the screen.
Yeah, literally what's happening and just the visual nature of it.
Yes, all the chaos, really, that's on screen. And you're like, wait, what did he just say? I don't even know what he just said.
And then not to mention, Johnny Depp is really hard to understand with a cigarette pipe in his mouth.
Yes.
The whole movie. I love the look, but man, it affects the dialogue.
Which, thank God for subtitles.
Yes, of course.
But then you're watching the subtitles, but you're also trying to watch this psychedelic looking shit on the TV, and it's very hard to pay attention to, which is a little bit sad because I feel like some of that narration comes straight from the book, and it's the important things that you're supposed to be getting out of all the shit he's actually saying, or what you're actually seeing.
Yeah, it's almost better to just turn off the movie, the visual part of it, and just listen to it.
Yeah,
which then I guess you just have a book, but
an audiobook, yeah. But I like that we were told straight up that they were in search of the American dream. I'm not sure if I would have completely gotten that. There's a lot of symbolism with the American flags and such, but I don't know if I would have completely gotten that because this movie did not make it look like this is what the American dream is, or this is what the search of the American dream is, which is the point of the movie. At this point of time, this is what the American dream, or at least the search of the American dream, looked like for so many people.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And so we have here Hunter S. Thompson almost parodying the absurdity of people chasing the American dream in certain ways, especially with a focus of gambling.
Las Vegas, yeah.
It's Vegas and what Vegas represents more so, and its focus on entertainment and hedonism and this explicit lack of focus on working towards these things, really. Like a proper American dream house, family, maybe, just things you want, things bigger than yourself, maybe. And when Hunter S. Thompson introduces himself and his friend, it still rings true in a different way, I think, today, in him saying we're on the search for the American dream. He's speaking less for himself and his friend and speaking for a generation of people. And there's something very specific about his observation in that it feels like he's saying if everyone's on this same search, it kind of brings into question the tangible nature of the American dream. Sort of like the One Piece in One Piece. Is there even a One Piece? Or is it the friends you make along the way? Hunter S. Thompson almost hinting at this like capitalistic corporate grip America has on its people to run after these ideas when they are nothing but a gamble.
Yeah, that's very well said, because not only is this relevant in the 70s when this is taking place, but also the 90s when this movie is filmed. But we'll bring that back up later. I do think we have an amazing performance by Johnny Depp.
Yeah, I was curious how you felt.
He's wild.
It's something.
Yes, he's wild, but I think when you're used to somebody like Captain Jack Sparrow, something like this is nothing. And he gives us this unreliable character, because as soon as we start out, he tells us that he's on every drug known to man. But we have this reliable narration, which is just kind of weird.
That's that kind of conflicting thing that comes out of trying to adapt the book into something visual.
Yes.
And it's kind of funny that you say that, because I almost feel like him admitting to the degree of his drug use is his way of being honest.
That's very true, but as the viewer, you're like, okay, what actually happened and what didn't? And
what is even real?
Yes.
We're in bat country.
Exactly. Whatever that means. Which I like the way the drugs were referenced, by the way, and, you know, me being naive that I am, I don't know if these are actual drug references, like the laughers and screamers. I know downers are, so I got that one, but I don't know about the laughers and screamers, which was hilarious. I don't know.
Yeah, and the visual component of seeing the briefcase and how it's laid out, and I think at some point we see a little bit of an x-ray shot of it.
Yeah.
So cool. I love the presence of drugs.
My initial thought watching this movie was that you need to be on drugs to watch this movie, because not only is the action crazy, but all the colors and the cinematography is insane. But thinking about it a little bit more, it almost turns into this, you need to have done drugs or have an understanding of what drugs do to people to understand. Not necessarily be on drugs while watching, but knowing what drugs do. And it's awesome. It's pretty awesome, the drug use here, because putting drugs in a movie is kind of a turnoff for me. Especially excessive drugs in a movie is a bit of a turnoff. I'm thinking of
Wolf of Wall Street,
and that was definitely a big turnoff. But actually having to think about the drug use and why people use drugs is new for me. On why people would want to be so removed from reality. But for some reason, this movie sparked it. It sparked that question. So overall, this movie left me very confused, very thoughtful, at least, and very curious to read the book and actually think about it together.
Yeah, the presence of drugs in films is usually just whatever. They are some form of catalyst of someone getting arrested, or sometimes like Wolf of Wall Street, there's this emphasis on excess, but never used in a more thoughtful sense. And it's kind of funny because a lot of people who experiment with certain drugs, certain uses, under certain conditions, find a lot of clarity in life, in the way they're supposed to be, how we're supposed to be, and even bring a little bit of an objective kind of view on maybe humanity as a whole. I hate to say that, it makes you kind of one with the universe sort of thing.
Like in Monkey Man?
Yeah, I guess sort of a lot like Monkey Man, actually. There is this kind of maybe cringe element of drugs kind of unlocking this third eye in us.
Oh, yeah. That's just an excuse to use drugs.
And there's something to that, because drugs in general are maybe this line that is very easily abused and even more so misunderstood. But the way people talk about their experiences while being like on LSD come across maybe even too honest for their own good. Like they understand now things about themselves that they didn't want to know, or understand certain things about other people and they can never look at that person the same. So there's no doubt this element to this movie and the book and the subculture, of course, the counterculture of people who experiment with drugs, maybe not necessarily drug addicts, like the guys in Wolf of Wall Street or whatever. That's almost like this academic oriented discipline of just being so specific that unless you're in on it, it's kind of hard to wrap your mind around it in any meaningful, substantial way. So, I mean, I think you're mostly right that without having firsthand experience in some form, being just into the stories people tell when they're on drugs, or being into certain drugs yourself, or being around it, there may be a big hurdle to get over here, especially when you're mixing that with the visual component of this film. Because the most surrealistic thing that happens in this movie isn't the use of CG and weird figures or whatever, moving things. It's just light and the camera tilting and swaying. So there's this really masterfully built unease into the film that probably makes it harder to digest than the book itself, even though they're very similar in what they have to say.
Yeah.
So I get it. I mean, it's a challenging movie.
Yeah, and to elaborate a little bit on that, some of the ideas in this movie might be relevant today as far as chasing the American dream or having some other way to escape besides drugs. But the actual drug use is so relevant in that time of America, or at least the exploration of it. My mind goes to the hippie movement. And we even hear the radio in the background mention something about drug use is killing Americans. And I don't know how many of them are being killed in Vietnam because of drug use. So it's being
villainized,
yeah,
at the very least.
Yeah.
And then I love the cop convention, the narcotic convention, where they're talking about, they have that little video where that video makes these drugs look like things from a horror movie and just like these really evil, demonic things.
Yeah, you're gonna die or it's the devil in you, you know? Yeah, that conference, narcotics conference, whatever you want to call it, sequence was weird. It was weird. I didn't know what to make of it, besides just a pit stop in our journey. And I know it's important because of the drugs and what was going on screen as far as camera work, making the guy who was talking all weird looking and Raul wanting to get out of there as fast as possible. It was just weird.
It was kind of funny when he was sitting there and they were talking about the drugs being evil. Raul looked like, they are? He's like looking at his joint or his cigarette, whatever he had, and he's like, oh man, I need to quit.
That was funny. And among the drug use, the 60s and 70s are some of the most cultural shifting decades of America, especially when it comes to living in excess. And we still live in excess, even today. I don't know if it's worse or better.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because the big movie of excess, the hallmark of excess, is Wolf of Wall Street. And it surrounds sex and drugs and taking advantage of the system and stuff. And so it's very loud. When excess happens much more quietly, excess destroys homes and lives and psyches much more quietly than doing drugs and women or men, if you prefer. And of course, when you think excess in the 60s and 70s, your mind probably still goes to drugs, I would guess. And I think the abuse is obvious where it starts, and that is the adoption of just consumer goods and commodities and our trend towards corporations providing everything for us.
Yeah, that's where my mind goes. The toaster ovens, the washing machines, all these appliances that we started making really popular into homes. Not maybe they weren't invented during this time, but they were definitely very popular.
So there seems to me to be this kind of genius move within this film, and of course the book, disguising this point of excess through things like going to Las Vegas and maybe even the drugs. But like I've established, I believe the drugs are a way to objectify the observation of it all, while simultaneously still being the exact point of a so-called problem. Is it a problem? That might be also part of the point. Because above all else, I think this is an observation more than a commentary. But at the same time, holding that mirror to our faces to show us how absurd and frankly ugly the practices of greed and glut we have, and how corporations and just the nature of capitalism in essence has maybe naturally designed this equation to allow us to believe that we have control over the outcome, the American dream, perhaps, when in reality the equation is just risk and excess.
No, I absolutely love that, because I was thinking of the title of the film, the fear part. That's easy. You know, they're on drugs. I think at one point he says, I'm getting the fear, after he's had like so many. It's this anxiety and paranoia.
Exactly. And also this Sartre-esque fear of observing the just grossness of human beings.
Yeah, and that gets me to the loathing part. And that one took a little bit more out of me, because to me, loathing is hating something really, really, really bad or good, hating it intensely. But there's another part to the definition of loathing, and I guess the entire definition is a feeling of intense dislike or disgust.
Disgust, yeah.
Disgust, yes. Because who is this intense dislike towards in the movie, at least? America? Themselves? I don't know, but the whole movie was disgusting. I mean, it was an intense disgust. Because not only were they doing disgusting like things, like being on drugs, being on a lot of drugs and alcohol, and hitting on these young people like Lucy. I don't know what was going on right there. I don't know how old she was supposed to be, but I know she was supposed to be young. But the characters looked nasty. Dr. Gonzo, Del Toro's character, looked disgusting. I mean, there were some scenes when he was on drugs, and I mean, he had blood on his face. His belly was just like protruding outward. His hair was a mess. The hotel rooms were disgusting. I mean, at one point you said they were flooded. Yeah, but this flooding, while there's like blood on the wall and pornographic pictures all over the room, there's condiments on the room. I don't know. It looked insane and gross. And like you said, it's holding this mirror to us, and is this what we look like in our overconsumption?
Is this what we look like to the objective observer?
Yes.
The stage is perfectly set. And the first scene in Las Vegas when they're checking in, and Raoul sees everybody as lizard people having an orgy.
Yeah, that was hard to watch, but it was crazy.
That's us.
That's us. Because we have these movies like Wolf of Wall Street. And I'm even going to throw a kid movie into this, like Wall-E.
Oh, yeah, it's a good example.
But neither of these movies look this disgusting. Those movies almost glorify it or make it look cute. But none of these movies are holding a mirror up to ourselves like this movie is. And that blew my mind. Because is the American dream still alive for late millennials? For Gen Zers?
No. We're so over encumbered with just American life that there is no, I want to say time to dream, but there's just no room to dream.
Yeah, at this point, I just want to go home, cuddle with my cat, watch a couple movies, and wake up the next day. But we're still in that life of excess, too, because a lot of our generation has replaced this excessive drug use with excessive social media use and excessive time on our phones.
And probably food more, too.
Yeah. Exactly. We have all these food delivery services that we don't even have to drive to get the excess food anymore. A lot of countries say that the portion sizes in America are insane.
America's already dreamed for the rest of us.
There's nothing to dream about. And I think this ties in a little bit with the introduction of the movie. We start this movie off with a quote, which always seems weird to me to start a movie off with a quote.
We see it pretty often, don't we?
Yeah, we do. And does anyone actually remember the quote that was told to you at the beginning of the movie?
I know, you almost need to start the movie right over as soon as it finishes and to remember. But I don't even remember there was a quote to begin with.
Right. Because does anyone go back and reread the quote? I don't know. Maybe they need to start handing out pamphlets with the movie quote.
That'd be pretty cool.
Or like a little fortune cookie with the movie quote. I don't know. But
you open it after the movie's done, and it's just the quote from the beginning of the movie, and you're like, what?
Whoa.
And then it hits a little harder.
Yeah, maybe. Because I never remember any of these. But the one here, which is from the book, is he who makes a beast of himself gets rid of the pain of being a man. Which required some thought out of me, to be honest.
This kind of ties into my thought on drugs bringing clarity and objectification to an observer, while the drug also simultaneously brings out the animal in you, but it relieves you from your human suffering of expectation in removing yourself from this equation of this guise of an American dream, aka the equation of commerce and excess and misguidedness.
Like some sort of escapism? Or some sort of numbing?
Sort of, but with an objective of finding the truth, understanding the truth, seeing the truth. But it's one of the great kind of meta ironies is you can't remove yourself from what you are. And what we are is human beings who are part of society.
We're complex animals.
We're complex animals that have created and forgot we created a completely artificial world. And so now over the course of, especially the last 100 years, you see these movements across different civilizations and cultures to help better understand where humans just fit in the world. Not even with animals and with each other, but just trying to find some almost maybe inner peace rather than like purpose.
Yeah, well said. But it's almost like we can't.
Yes, exactly. It's such an incredible, profound point too. It's sort of like this idea. Yes, exactly. It's sort of like this duality, like we learn about electrons and how they behave like a wave and a particle, depending on how it's observed. In that, how does one observe themselves as a unit when they are part of that unit?
Right.
No matter how you try, no matter how much you try to objectify your positioning through all these wonderful drugs, there is still this intersubjectivity that's ever present.
One of my favorite pieces of dialogue here is when he says, "But once you get locked into a serious drug collection, the tendency is to push it as far as you can," which is describing the type of person who wants to say something out of something, but is also the type of person to say, "But I have this tendency to still be excessive."
It's just this tether to this cyclical condition that we all suffer from.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great pieces of dialogue in this film, or I should say introspective kind of thoughts. There's not a lot of interesting dialogue,
Yes,
but
yes.
the things that go through Hunter S. Thompson's head are very cool. I think he mentions it a time or two about learning to love losing. And that's one of my favorite lines because it just continues to feed into this equation that we're told is the happy equation, the successful equation, when it's designed to lead to failure and lead to disappointment and destruction. And of course, trying to figure out your own equation is the right equation. And then even still, because of the conditions of our world, our actions are all still a gamble, which makes the presence of, Las Vegas just endlessly important, obviously, to the movie, but so symbolic to everything hedonistic and maybe even lazy.
There's a lot of chaos in this movie, no doubt, but I liked how we had a lot of perspectives in the movie. We had crazy wide angles, like when they're walking in the circus and their legs can't move or wobbly, I don't know. And we have a lot of close-up shots, especially when they're doing drugs. And they're all crazy. The visuals in the movie are really cool. We have a lot of bright, psychedelic, saturated colors with this really harsh lighting. And I mean, I can't say it enough. It just adds to the whole chaos of the themes, the moving action, and Las Vegas. Along with the drug use, making it seem hallucinogenic. Like we're experiencing this with Raoul.
I mean, totally. And then we get this really grounded section, visually and contextually, where they enter this like diner and the camera's all of a sudden not swaying. It's normal looking in there.
It's like we switched movies all of a sudden. But I like that you bring that up because there's another section I wanted to bring up that completely threw me off. And it's when I think Dr. Gonzo calls Raoul, telling him he needs to be somewhere else in Vegas. And he's like all of a sudden in his office somewhere. And he's cleaned. He looks decent. He's in a clean environment. And you're like, what the fuck? And that made me question everything that happened in the movie. I was completely thrown off. I thought they were pulling a Fight Club shit on me right now.
And there might be something to that. I'm not sure if there is, but it was so fast that it wouldn't be the craziest thing for them to tell me that Dr. Gonzo was just, or the Dr. Gonzo that was with us is just a figment of Hunter S. Thompson's. Yeah, it's like,
yeah.
But then again, I guess he did get on a plane going to LA. They're not that far apart. A couple hours, I guess.
But that was after.
I think he went on a plane twice because he comes back.
Oh my gosh.
Because that's actually kind of a funny point because this adventure that Hunter S. Thompson went on took place over the course of 2 separate trips. So there may be a little bit of funny remembering in that way.
Okay. I thought this was a play on, yes, the drug use, but also the gonzo journalism we have going on with this blurring of what is fiction and what is factual in this type of journalism. What actually happened here. But that makes more sense if it's separate events. There's also this nice, I don't know how to describe it. there's this phrase that is said in the beginning of the movie where the narration and the dialogue were merged and they said the same thing at the same time. I thought that was pretty cool. I don't know if I've seen that in a movie before, and if I have, it's probably very few instances where the narrator and the character speaking interact like that. And I could see it being used in a comical sense when, talking to each other, maybe breaking the fourth wall a little bit. But here it was almost disturbing, and it happens at the beginning. I think it's when he says, "Holy Jesus, what are these goddamn animals?" Talking about the bats. But it was pretty cool.
Yeah, it just kind of challenges the book itself in that this is not a recollection, but is happening in real time. Introspection is happening. Observation is happening. The perspective is completely different. And so, and I'll be honest, I don't know if I love it. I like talking about it. I like a lot of what this movie notices about us. Nothing new.
Yeah.
And that's fine. The fallacy of originality is forgotten.
I do want to say the lizard tail looked pretty good. It looked cool. It looked like that old show. Is it Dinosaur?
I think so. This sitcom.
Yeah, whatever it's called.
Show.
That's the vibes it gave me. I liked it.
That was him merging with this type of character he was trying to separate himself from.
Jesus Christ. That's insane.
He went too far with his wild night out.
He did.
He horseshoed around.
He took the ether. That's when he took the ether? Or no?
I think so, yeah. He drank like the whole thing and he's supposed to take just a couple drops, and then he became a Republican.
A Republican. But I also thought the hotel rooms looked insane. I don't know if they were very over the top or if that's just what hotels in Vegas looked like back then, or if they still look like that now. I don't know. I haven't been to Vegas. But hotels now are so simple. They're very, very minimal. You have a bed with white sheets. You got 2 pillows. You got a microwave, a mini fridge. Boom. Done.
If that's how the hotels would have been for Hunter S. Thompson here, he would have never had to leave the room to write this book. The level of like dystopian consumerism would have paralyzed him. It'd be kind of like that feeling, maybe it's just me, when you go to a new neighborhood and all of the houses look the same. Not too unsimilar to the, I think, 1950s architect Le Corbusier. That's Corbuser.
For our non-French speakers.
For us Americans. For us Republicans. I don't know why.
No, you're completely right. He would have been disturbed by everything looking the same.
I'll tell you what, this movie, in the original writing, reminds me of Jean-Paul Sartre's Humanism. In his other work, Nausea.
Yeah, I think that's very well said, but I'm still curious if that's what they looked like. They had to, right?
Yeah, I would guess so, and I would guess they probably still do. I don't know, the open floor plan seems to be...
That's a hit.
Like a rich person thing, and the big Las Vegas suites having that makes sense, because that's kind of a thing that's trickled down to the middle class today.
Whoa. And I still haven't been to Vegas?
Well, after this movie, do you want to go to Vegas? You want to see
heck no.
lizard people?
No.
Lizard orgies?
I don't want to see that carousel scene. You know what I'm talking about?
No, sure. That's one of the probably apexes of the movie, and it's not just a mirror, or maybe it is, but it's like a funhouse mirror in front of us, showing us what we think we look like when we are actually just freaks in a carnival.
Yeah, and like you said earlier, that kind of cyclical representation of this theme of excess. And this is probably one of my favorite parts. I like that Raoul tells Gonzo that 2 women were fucking a polar bear over there. And he's like, they were. And then later, the waitress comes. He's like, did they pay you for fucking that polar bear? You're like, what the fuck is going on right now?
Yeah.
And then there's a bar in a carousel. That just seems like a bad idea.
I know, right? And you mentioned it earlier, I think, when the two are coming up to that bar and they're all bow-legged and having a hard time walking. It just makes me think there's this observation in that there's this automatic kind of attraction to this lifestyle that we can't do anything about.
Yeah. If I saw that in real life, I would think that's fucking awesome. A carousel, a bar? What the heck is that? That's awesome to at least watch. Am I gonna go sit up and drink in it? No. But watching that happen would be, I don't know, it'd be something. I know we mentioned earlier that it was hard to tell what Johnny Depp was saying half the time because he had a cigarette in his mouth.
Yeah, totally. Thank God for subtitles today.
Yes.
They are distracting. I really have a fundamental problem with subtitles, but I honestly can't watch movies without them.
Yes. Completely 100% agree. I wish they had subtitles at the movie theater. But I did see this interview with Hunter S. Thompson and Conan O'Brien with the late night show, whatever. I don't know. I don't watch these things besides on YouTube. And Johnny Depp sounds just like him.
Oh, really?
Yes. So I don't think it was the cigarette in his mouth or whatever he had in his mouth. Because, I mean, it was insane how much he sounded like him. And Hunter S. Thompson looked like he was drunk coming into the interview. I don't know if he was just being funny or he's just on drugs. Like, it was hilarious watching that. It was like a minute or two. And in that interview, they briefly mentioned that Johnny Depp and Hunter S. Thompson became best friends and that Johnny Depp lived in his basement for a while to study him for this role. And it was just crazy, the amount of work that went into this from Johnny Depp. And I guess, Hunter S. Thompson being so available and willing to have someone in his life like that.
I'm sure he was a big fan because he invented gonzo journalism.
Yeah.
So he probably thought it was quite flattering for this to kind of come full circle onto him. Hunter S. Thompson also shaved Johnny Depp's head personally.
Oh, that's hilarious. So his head was shaven for that. It wasn't like a wig.
Nope, it was shaved.
Ah, that's hilarious.
Hey, hair grows back for, a lot of people. Not as crazy as Nick Cage shaving his teeth down to fit some grill for Renfield. That's crazy.
That's too much. That's too much, Nick Cage. Too much. But I did like his voice for narration. I mentioned before in our Fight Club episode that our narrator in Fight Club has one of the best sounding narrations I've ever heard. I like the sound of his voice. But Johnny Depp's was kind of weird, but I liked it. It gave me big Ringo vibes. But I wasn't mad at it. I was, however, weirded out by seeing Tobey Maguire. Is he a big actor? I mean, I just really know him from Spider-Man. That's it.
I mean, not really, but he's popped up in a handful of things just like, what are you doing here, man? But, I mean, he gets around, totally.
Yeah, that was weird. But I do like that we saw him again later towards the film. He's like, oh no, it's you.
And it scares him away.
Yeah. What did you think about the chemistry between Dr. Gonzo and Raoul Duke?
I mean, it was kind of funny. The Hunter S. Thompson character, Johnny Depp, seemed to be afraid of Dr. Gonzo a lot of the time, especially when he's got a knife or when he's trying to kill himself or whatever. And he's just really kind of cautious around him. And I don't know, it's really funny. I like it.
I would be too.
And there's not a lot of, meaningful dialogue between them, but it is funny. Everything they have to say is funny. I will say this is probably one of the funniest movies in my life. I don't get a lot out of movies as far as laughing at them because it's just movies. I prefer, funny stuff in real life is funnier. It's going to make me tickle.
Yeah. Or unless you're making fun of the movie.
Yeah, of course. But when Johnny Depp nails Benicio del Toro's face with the grapefruit, it's awesome. And I guess at the same time, he thinks he's being electrocuted.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just like, it's pretty funny. Pretty funny.
There's some funny moments in this.
So, I mean, I think their chemistry is excellent together. This movie was probably a pain in the ass to make for the production side of things, but there's probably a lot of fun also happening.
Yes, I agree. I don't know how involved Hunter S. Thompson was with the production of the movie, but they at least got his blessing, and I'm sure that played a major part.
And all these people lived through his writings,
Oh, that's true. I didn't think about that.
either tangentially or right down the middle. There's something very familiar with the Fear and Loathing book that is going to speak to everyone one way or another. Because kind of like how I've been establishing my position, there's this frictionless momentum that you can't get off of and don't even know you're moving. And everyone's handed a mirror for the ride. Thank you for watching this movie with me here today and talking about it here today. This has been a very insightful discussion on my side. For me, I've straightened some things out in my head because of this conversation.
You're very welcome. Thank you for the watch and the homework. Because, man, did I put in the homework.
Well, I appreciate it. Do you have a budget guess?
My budget guess is $25 million. There was a lot going on. Not sure how expensive that is. Not sure if it was actually shot in Vegas. There were a lot of moving pieces in here. A lot of sets. A lot going on. A lot of props. Some CG, especially with the distorted people. So yeah, I think I'm sticking with 25 mil. Whether that's in today's money or in 1998. Whatever I'm closest to.
Oh yeah, I got that. And it says here that it was 18 million.
Ooh, not terribly off.
And I know it was quite the commercial failure, but has probably since kind of recouped that loss. But in the box office, it made 13.7 million.
Oh, man. That's rough.
But it's kind of become retroactively a cult classic, so it's probably picked that up over DVDs and whatever.
Yeah, I'm sure our Letterboxd score will reflect.
Yeah. With 437,000 people, they weighed in at a 3.8.
Whoa.
Super high.
That's very high.
And part of me gets it, but part of me, I don't know. Like, I don't love this movie.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm stuck between a 2.5. As a movie, it's okay. It's funny. I didn't get bored, so that's always a plus. But I was also trying to understand, and I don't know if I want that from a movie. It required a lot of homework from me. Maybe some of these people had already read the book and already knew Hunter S. Thompson.
No, totally. It helps already having a position in this fight, knowing the hill that you're going to die on. Because there's obviously some really great things happening here. But like I said at the top, it's a little bit boring. I get it. But I also love the conversation piece.
Yes. As a thought, it's very good. So it's a little hard for me to differentiate between how this movie makes me think versus what I actually watched on the screen.
I think I'm floating around a 3. Part of me wants to give it a 3.5 just because of what it can invoke in us and me.
Yeah, I guess part of my problem with that is that I had to evoke it out of myself. I had to think way too hard.
That's fair.
But that could also just be a me problem.
No, totally. And it's definitely a great example of not everything is for everyone. And there's maybe a little bit of a time and place thing at play here. You could see some form of a remake happening today and it having a similar effect. I wouldn't literally want it to be a remake, but at least in the equation of misguided kind of excess we've built here.
Right.
I could see really working today, but maybe not at the same time because it might also be way too surrealistic or way too niche, like Dream Scenario. This movie kind of makes me think of Dream Scenario where it's something maybe very timely. But yeah, man, thank you for talking about this movie here today. I'm glad you've opened up to it a little bit.
Oh, I definitely opened up to it.
And I hope you guys enjoyed that little conversation about Fear and Loathing. Remember, we post every Monday and Friday with brand new episodes of the Filmistines. And every other Wednesday on patreon.com/Filmistines for Patreon exclusive episodes. Like our recent Saw ranking episode. Very good. Go check it out for $1. It's worth $1.
Yeah, definitely worth $1.
Our next episode will be on Back to the Future. The first one. One of the 80s classics. Maybe the only good 80s movie? I don't know.
Nah. You fighting words now.
I'm looking forward to that.
Me too. Never seen it.
Please look forward to that. I hope you guys will enjoy that one too. But remember to leave nice comments, thoughts, and ideas on our Patreon as well. And come subscribe, request a movie, go rate us on Apple Podcasts. We appreciate all the support. Thank you guys very much. But until next time, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Filmistines. Thanks for tuning in and joining us on our cinematic journey. We hope you enjoyed the discussion and gained new insights and perspectives in the world of movies. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform, especially Patreon at patreon.com/Filmistines, and follow us on social media for more film-related content. We love hearing from our listeners, so if you have any feedback, suggestions, movie recommendations, or book recommendations, please feel free to reach out to us. Until next time, keep watching and keep loving the magic of movies. This is the Filmistines signing off.